My name is Kobe Lemon. This is for my WDD330 Web Front-End Development 2 class for BYU, Idaho. This is for my portfolio, where I kind of describe my personal development as well as the skill development outcomes. So let's get right into it. All right, so this is the personal development right here. Become more efficient at applying your innate curiosity and creativity. For this, I chose week 9 and weeks 11, 12, and 13. Week 9 consisted of the challenge proposals, where we proposed our idea for the final project. I utilized that curiosity and creativity by researching the possible APIs. And when I started working on the final project, I learned what worked and what didn't and how to fix that. And as I learned more about fixing bugs, I also learned how to expand upon what I had and enhance the project. Become more dexterous at exploring the environment. I was able to learn how to research properly, and I was also decent at utilizing VS Code when I first started. But as I kept working on the assignments and with my team, I found ways to utilize VS Code more efficiently, as I was able to organize everything and keep the like files together. And for becoming a person who enjoys helping and learning from others, for the first week when we set up the course setup, I was one of the first people to show up for each of the team calls. And I read through the various course setup information beforehand to ensure that all my information would be set up properly. Yeah, it was also allowed me to get my own software set up easily and help my teammates. And for week 4, I was the driver for that. And all of my teammates and I were working together to create the product list.mjs and the product card template and the rest of that team activity. And for the divide and conquer, week 7, I was a driver for that one for checkout. And it was decently complex, so I had delegated the tasks so we could all divide and conquer to complete it effectively. And as well as with my final project, I worked on each thing, small things at once. For example, like I built the base HTML structure of each page and pushed it to GitHub, and then the base CSS of each page and pushed it to GitHub, and so on with the rest of the project. That ensured my changes were compartmentalized, a clear progression of work completed, and if I have to roll back the code, I can do it by small increments rather than rolling back a large amount of code. And for finding and troubleshooting bugs, in week 7, when I finished my own Trello card, I had a couple of team members that almost finished theirs, but one of them was stuck on a bug where the superscript number wouldn't be added, wouldn't be increased when you add to the cart. To help them find it out, he was just trying to run both functions at the same time. So we just put the superscript function into a set timeout that waited like, I believe it was half a second, then it worked. And as well as with my final project, it relied on a button click that rendered a template filled with API information. And I found that it took a really long time, like 5 to 10 seconds or longer, to get the information and render it. Once I was able to recognize that, that was because it was building the template and then filling in the information. So I set it up instead, use backtick notation, just build it and fill it out all at once. And that sped it up to only a second or two. And as for the skill development, I learned quite a bit. So for JavaScript, I created some utility functions that took dynamic information and they helped me to complete tasks such as like local storage, rendering data, fetching data, finding current date, and formatting like a Unix date, and capitalizing each word of a string. And this is that MJS file. These are all my various utility functions here. And I also imported and exported functions and used async await to asynchronously get the data. I did that one largely with the current location, get the API information, as well as the weather to get the API information. And I also used set timeout in those same files to delay a couple things as needed to make it more flow a bit better. I also was able to add event listener. That was the current location JS and weather right here. That was able to run the various code that was needed. Right here as well. And I was also able to use the date object in that utils file to get the date and format it. As for the third-party API, I was able to use the Open Weather API in geolocation, and I utilized that data to properly find the information and display it. Also in the weather and current location MGS folders. And for JSON, I used the Open Weather API and that returned its data using JSON. Geolocation didn't. Open Weather API did. And I was able to use dot notation to denote that information. And use JSON.parse and JSON.stringify to get things from local storage and set them, respectively. So this was the .parse and .stringify. And for the Open Weather API, in weather.mjs, it is dot notation. It saved it in this format, and all of this was taken from Open Weather API. And for CSS, I used quite a bit. So I used media query to differentiate small and larger sizes, a hamburger button that used JavaScript to open and close and was styled in CSS, only showed up in small view and disappeared in large view. And the home page used display grid with grid template columns and min-max to auto-distribute the tiles. And all of the pages in the small view used display flex and the column in order to just do vertically. And most of the anchor tags use decoration none to remove their underlines. I also researched and tried different color combinations to find a cohesive palette and typography. And the final project, I wanted to be more laid back, so everything just shared the same similar font. And I chose Verdana. Yes, so I used Arial and Verdana. And this is where most of it is. So we have like hovers as well. Hamburger button here. And a few instances of grid. And most of the tiles and buttons out of box shadows stick out. And again, the event listeners and hover effects I used for events. In local storage, I showed you that as well. Or get local storage and set local storage. And that's all the skill and personal development for the portfolio that I have. Thanks.